Welcome to the Political Matrix News. We have the sources, we have the truth from inside the political matrix. Hey there, welcome back to the Political Matrix News. Rob Milford and Greg Fink and Scott Miller. We are at your service. We talk about politics. We try to come up with as much inside dirt as possible and still keep our license or our lives, depending on how. Yeah.
Lives,
Yeah, we're licensed and bonded, right?
Yeah, there you go. You go ahead and keep telling yourself that right now. Okay, I got a.
I'm licensed and bonded. I don't know you guys.
I am for other
nothing to do
things.
with politics.
Jimmy Buffett was a friend, and I will tell you, I have a license to chill. Okay, I definitely do. I don't know how to use it, but all right. So there are two things we want to talk about. Number one is polling, and number two is the Trump assassination conspiracy program. As it's now blossoming, there's probably an industry, and I'm sure there'll be a museum set up in an empty storefront in Butler, Pennsylvania before you know it. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding about that either. Let's talk about the polling.
You're right.
Let's talk about polling. We're doing this on Tuesday, the 30th of July. It is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days since Joe Biden said, I'm not going to run for re-election. Prior to that, Democrats were scampering, were running wild, looking for some way to replace Kamala Harris as the vice president of the United States. The woman had negative polling numbers. She had numbers lower than Joe Biden's, and he was in the 30s. Now, in a remarkable, only in America, with the acquiescence of the liberal media and the Democratic political machine and the scheduled, how many bots do we think the Democrats have? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 million?
God.
Right.
Yeah.
So more than that, probably. That's how Joe Biden got 81 million votes, for God's sake. So here's the deal. Kamala Harris has gone from in the 20 percentile, less than 30 percentile, to now incredible numbers. The Democrats wanted her out not more than 2 weeks ago. I mean, off the ticket. What can we do to get rid of this woman? And now in the polls, in many polls, whether it's likely voters, adults, air-breathing people who may breathe with their mouth open, all of those different criteria that pollsters use, and they now have Kamala Harris pretty much in a dead heat with Donald Trump. What the hell, guys? You guys both do polling, have done polling. What the hell?
My opinion here.
Yes.
My opinion here. She should have. We are in the honeymoon phase of Kamala's campaign, and her bump should have put her well ahead of Trump. So the fact that even with registered voter polls, which are very Democrat friendly, she should be way ahead of Trump. And at this point, she's doing good to tie, doing very good to tie. The problem is we haven't really started reminding people of her record yet. We have yet to begin to really remind people who Kamala is. So it's going to be very interesting as things start to progress and we start to see really who she is. Because I don't, there's a reason that she left the campaign back in 2020 with 0 delegates.
Yep.
And spent money doing it.
Is exactly. She spent a lot of money doing it. I mean, here we have Nevada with her ahead, and in Michigan she's ahead. And these are all, once again, registered voters, and they're not likely voter polls. I mean, it's interesting. They just somehow cannot come up with a likely voter poll all of a sudden. Now, Scott and I were actually talking about how good the polling industry was doing whenever they were doing likely voter polls, and how realistic and how the sample size and everything looked good. Now they're going back to reverting to where they're having to go ahead and find whatever numbers they need to have to justify her relevance for her running, to justify the fundraising that she's doing. And so that is what they are doing. They're basically trying to create numbers and trying to create an atmosphere that she's ahead. And I'm not saying they're fake polls or anything, although, they're the ones who say that we're accusing them of being cheap fakes and everything else. So who knows? Maybe the cause the kettle black here. But the reality is that they're not likely voter polls. They're registered voter polls, and they're not accurate at all. But they're being surmised as the best news out there by far.
But that just is infuriating to me.
Knowing
what polling costs, and to try to get the right balance of the American population in that. But when they say adults, means nothing. Correct? The only polls that count.
Adults are the worst.
For political purposes. They're getting the answers they want to get.
They stack it that way. They predetermine.
Well, I mean, the less likely they are, the less they are as far as likely voters. Like likely voters are people who vote all the time. When you're not characterized as a likely voter, that means that you are less and less engaged in the political process,
right.
Which means that you get your interpretation of events from the media, who's largely dominated by Democrats, and
right.
they have. And not even talking about propaganda, just that they have a particular point of view. And if you're only light touching it, you hear half of a story. Well, maybe you kind of agree with them until you start digging deeper, like the likely voters do. That's why registered voters and adult polls are more friendly to Democrats.
Okay, makes sense.
They just keep running the numbers until they get the answer they want.
All right, so let me bounce on what Scott said again, just to make sure we understand this. That based on polling of long-standing, she should have a much bigger bounce with the polls now 9 or 10 days into her campaign. I heard someone express today, is this amazing that she's had so many events just magically drop out of the sky? But I imagine there is a big office that's working the phones constantly to find someplace else for her to go. Is that pretty accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, she has these events with 44,000 people on the phone, or Zoom has to shut down and add more Zoom lines because Zoom's not possible. But all this happened just with no notice, really. It all just spontaneously happened because it's a spontaneous campaign. As if there's no planning whatsoever. As if nobody knew Joe Biden was going to drop out unless Kamala unless she might have been behind this thing the whole time. Oh, I love you, Joe. I love you. You're doing good. Just stay in there.
Yeah. I do want to point out that one of the most hilarious things about that Zoom call was one of the participants in it, one of the actresses who was a participant in it. She coined it as Karens for Kamala.
Exactly.
There's
we have a video about that, don't we?
It's white dudes for Kamala. I thought was funny.
That's right, yeah.
Let me tell you the other thing. The Villages may continue to be the fastest growing community in Florida, below Ocala, above Orlando, straddling now both sides of the Florida Turnpike, and pushing, I think, about 100,000 residents. Most of the folks have a car and a golf cart. And they had a golf cart rally for Kamala over the weekend, the 27, 28. And it was a much bigger, now we're less than a week into the Kamala campaign. It was far bigger than the Trump golf cart rally of 2020 or 2016. Far bigger. And they'd never seen anything that big. To quote Donald Trump, it was huge. It just wasn't for Donald Trump.
Huge.
What do you say?
I mean, she has excitement. Okay, she has a lot of people who want to come see the show, and she might be as exciting on the Democrat side, as charismatic on the Democrat side, as Trump is on the Republican side for this time being, as the honeymoon starts. I think once everything starts talking about her policies, about her fracking and her issues on drilling and her issues on China and her issues on Israel and everything else. And I think once people start digging deeper into her, being a serious candidate, not a, entertaining candidate, hopefully people care about that. And that's actually the next step is hopefully people care. I think the excitement's going to weigh off quite a bit.
And I noticed that Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, it's almost like she is the sole focus of their shows. and they are playing all of these clips going back to her days in the U.S. Senate. And could you guys do me a favor, because I have not been successful? In 2020, 2019, there is apparently an annual poll based on a senator's liberalism or conservatism. And most of us think of Bernie Sanders being the most liberal of all of the senators. Apparently, Kamala was further out in left field than Bernie Sanders was. Do you know where that came from?
Yeah, we're gonna show it up here on the screen here real quick.
All right, yeah.
So
excellent.
It's actually a poll, and so basically, according to the story here, I mean, Kamala was by far the farthest left senator in the Senate.
Well, I'll tell you, the really horrible part for her is not only does she publish extremely liberal opinions, but that completely offend the middle and the right. But she also does things like keep people who are exonerated by the Innocence Project in prison because they didn't timely file something,
right?
You know, and it's not white guys she's keeping in there; it's black people. So she's going out of her way to keep black men in prison, even when they're exonerated. So and at the same time, she's offending all the conservatives. I don't know who her friends are, which is probably, or constituency is anyway, which is a lot of why she's she had to leave the race early to begin with.
I mean, when she got in the race originally 4 years ago, she had a lot of excitement. She had a lot of people getting behind her for the first 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then crickets happened, and then they found another person running, and there's another other person running. And then here we don't have the situation; we only have her running. But I did not see them really, getting behind her as strong as she needs them to get behind her for this duration here.
Do you think there is a chance in hell, whether a snowball is involved or not, maybe pigs flying through a snowstorm in August in Chicago, is there a chance in hell that some other Democrats will put forward other serious Democratic names in nomination in Chicago? Or is it going to be accolades and what do we call that when they do the one thing? Acclamation. That's what it is. Acclamation.
Yeah,
There's no need for yes. You think there's any way that another Democrat would put their name in nomination just to piss her off?
I hope so.
Me too.
I don't know. I still. Well, I would love to too, but I still maintain that it's going to be hard for them to walk away from the DEI, prospect of all this stuff. They have made such a big deal out of she's the first black woman, she's the first Asian woman, she's the first woman to be this close to becoming the president, and how are they going to deprive her of this opportunity, regardless of what her polls are, without alienating significant chunks of their core constituencies.
I miss Hillary. Where's Hillary when you need her?
Yeah, right.
There you go. That's a nomination. It takes one person. When they go, one vote for Hillary Clinton. Boom. Yeah. That could change. Then it would be Trump versus Clinton number 2. And that's a scary as hell prospect, to be honest.
That would be very entertaining, though, because, I mean, they're doing the same thing with the deep state, with the algorithms and everything else. Like right now, if you Google the stuff about Trump and everything, and hardly even see it. But I think we're going to be talking about that when we talk about the conspiracy here with the Secret Service and everything.
Well, that would be that's going to be a great topic for another time, because our window for this episode of Political Matrix News has run out, because we got the polling.
It's running out.
Yeah, it's run out. Because we try to do a 12 to 14.
It seems like it.
But guess what? Next week, our very first episode will be all about, and we're going to know more. We're going to know more on August the 1, 2, 3, 4, on the 6th. Hey, that's Hiroshima Day. So that's a good day to blow the lid off what the hell happened to Donald Trump. And I think it's a big deal that he took the bandage off and people are going, we don't see a lot of damage. That means the surgeon did a nice job stitching it up and they bandaged it just the right way. And of course, his old White House doctor, Ronnie Jackson, congressman now in Texas, was right there and took a look at it and and the follow-up, the days following up the shooting. He was with Trump in the at the convention in Milwaukee. So I think that's, you have a doctor who's an admiral who was a trauma guy, and he was in very, very good shape. I want to get in on this. I think it's, like a lot of things, a comedy of errors. I would like to believe it was a comedy of errors, but if it was a conspiracy, sadly, we will never know the truth. And that just means that somebody is lying to the American people, but probably somebody who's lying would like to keep their life. Not a matter of keeping their job. They would like to keep their life, because if there's power out there that can actually smite a president down, then what's one little bureaucrat? Pop. Yeah.
Amen.
I would like you to like this podcast. I would like you to subscribe to this for the for free. It's not too bad. And no, we don't sell your names and emails, and we don't really. Do we send out junk emails? I don't get any. Are you sending them out? I don't know.
I think
about
we're going to start doing that. I think we might start doing that.
No, we're not going to start doing that.
Oh, come on. No, we're not going to do that. No, we won't do that. We're not those other guys.
Understand this. There is now a company that says they will start charging you to open and read that email. No, they're going to charge you to discard the email without opening it.
Really?
That's a great way to raise money.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Okay, well, hey,
read my spam.
First have the dream. Everything else is details. On behalf of Greg Fink, Scott Miller, I'm Rob Milford, and thanks for being part of the Political Matrix. Gentlemen, good night.